Hello there! It's time for another episode of Orange Truth Archetypes. And on this episode, we'll be continuing to look at the TV show Avatar: The Last Airbender. And as you may have guessed, today we'll be looking at the greatest earthbender that ever lived, Toph Beifong. Today I'll be looking at the character traits and personality of Toph, and based entirely on my more or less completely unqualified opinion, assigning her specific archetype. Let's get started. First off, we'll be looking at the ruler archetype. As you may know, the ruler needs to be in control. And while Toph does need to be in control of herself, she really doesn't mind letting others do their own thing. She has a somewhat laid-back attitude that doesn't really fit this archetype. Plus, she would rather be independent and different, and probably wouldn't want others to be like her. In the episode with the Ember Island players, even though her character was somewhat inaccurate, she actually enjoyed this. However, like the ruler, and most earthbenders, her style is pretty straightforward. She's also incredibly proud and has a lot of self-confidence. And she certainly has the desire to obtain power, at least over herself. But as we all know, Toph is way too much of a troublemaker to be the ruler, so let's move on to our next archetype, the Jester. Now, it really wouldn't surprise me if Toph wasn't the Jester either. For starters, the Jester is all about looking at things from different points of view, and this probably isn't Toph's strong suit. However, the Jester is unrestrained and spontaneous, and Toph is pretty impulsive.
Yeah, let's break some rules!
Plus, Toph does show a willingness to branch out in her earthbending. After what happened to her and Appa in the desert, she dedicated herself to learning sandbending, and her fear of being restrained forced her to adapt and come up with metal bending. Plus, she's certainly not above making jokes about her blindness. And while she does have some insecurities, she definitely has lots of self-confidence and enjoys being in the spotlight. So now that I think about it, this archetype might be a surprisingly good fit for her. And maybe this one will too. The Everyman. Now let's take a look at this archetype. Like the Everyman, Toph didn't start out with a burning desire for greatness, and she spent most of her final days pretty much alone in the swamp. So while she definitely believes she's the greatest earthbender ever, she's pretty fine being independent and alone, especially since her social skills leave something to be desired. Thus, she doesn't seek out like-minded individuals and doesn't really value status, other than her own. Plus, the Everyman often blames others for their problems and plays the victim, and this is something I don't really see with Toph, as she doesn't let her blindness get in the way. And while she certainly has close friends, she was late to join Team Avatar, and as her parents rejected who she was, she probably struggles with forming strong bonds with others. Thus, the Everyman, not a good fit for Toph. And this one probably isn't either. The Caregiver. I think we all know how this is gonna go. We do see Toph a bit as a mother in Legend of Korra, but not exactly in her best moments. But we did see her show self-sacrificing qualities when her daughters were in trouble and she came to rescue them, a trait the Caregiver is known for. And as we saw when she was teaching Aang, she's more of a tough love kind of individual. Plus, she is certainly willing to play dirty. In fact, I think playing muddy is something she prefers. And we do see a more caring side of Toph in the series, such as the guilt she felt over losing Appa or talking to Katara in prison. Overall though, she knows she can take care of herself and kind of expects others to do the same. So as expected, this one is a really good fit. But I think this one she'll do much better in. The Hero archetype. This is one of my favorite archetypes to do, because it's all about overcoming obstacles. And as we know, Toph was able to overcome her biggest obstacle, being blind, as a mere child. Yes, she may not be able to read or write, but she adjusted so much as to even use it to her advantage, with sensing vibrations to the point of telling if people are lying or not by judging the vibrations of their heartbeat. And though not optimistic, she is certainly relaxed and confident like the hero. However, she doesn't really have a desire to help others. A big reason she even joined Team Avatar was for herself, so she could run away from her parents. And while one might see her as quick thinking and impulsive at first, let's not forget that she is a master of neutral Jing.
Your teacher will be someone who has mastered neutral Jing. You need to find someone who waits and listens before striking.
So while not a guarantee, I think this archetype is worth considering. And let's keep the rock rolling with the Revolutionary. Now I think this is a likely contender for Toph's archetype. While she may act like she doesn't care what others think of her, I think this is really just an act, and she secretly, desperately wants others to think of her as a strong, self-sufficient, and the most powerful earthbender ever.
I am the greatest earthbender in the world! Don't you two dunderheads ever forget it!
She wants others to fear or respect her, plus she is somewhat pessimistic and not very trusting. And if it means doing what is right, she certainly doesn't mind breaking the rules. Plus, she enjoys being in charge. So much so that she formed the Republic City Police Force. So an archetype that is all about being in charge and wanting to change your environment is definitely a good fit for Toph. Plus, her earthbending and vibration sense makes her very intertwined with her environment so much that she spent her final days in the swamp. And come on, anyone with a statue like that has got to be the Revolutionary. In other words, the Revolutionary is going to be tough to beat, like Toph. But I think this next one is going to put up a good fight. The Outlaw. You know it, I know it, we all know it. It's a pretty good fit for Toph. Toph certainly likes to cause trouble, so much so that she was even put into prison to pulling off all those scams. She certainly doesn't mind violence, nor does she mind being different. She values concepts like equality and justice, and is difficult if not impossible to control. She's a master of her own fate and doesn't let others boss her around, not even Katara. Plus, while she does take on more of a leadership role as she gets older, she really starts out as someone who is just going with the flow and doesn't want to be in charge. The Outlaw hates major cities and big organizations with lots of rules and restrictions.
Finally leaving Ba Sing Se. Worst city ever!
Plus, the whole way she even developed metal bending in the first place was by literally breaking out of her own metal prison. So if that doesn't say that she's the Outlaw, I don't know what does. But let's take a look at this next archetype anyways. The Magician. So let's see if Toph has a few magical qualities in her personality. What is interesting is the way she goes about gaining knowledge and power. She learns how to metal bend because that was what was restraining her at the time, and she learned earthbending in order to overcome her blindness from the badger moles. Then she learned sandbending after she lost Appa in the desert. She seems to gain a lot of knowledge after she experiences some kind of struggle in her life. So while she doesn't gain knowledge in the traditional sense, she does extend the reach as to what her bending can do. However, she doesn't really change in the series. She started out and ended as a powerful bender that believed in herself.
Woo! Toph, you rule.
And while she certainly grows and changes and gains lots of knowledge and power throughout the series, I don't really think she has a personality change so much, so I don't think the Magician is good for her. But let's take a look at the next archetype, the Sage. I don't really have a lot of hope for this one either, though there are some aspects of the Sage that Toph embodies. For example, she is Aang's earthbending teacher, which fits the archetype well, especially since Aang really struggled with learning earthbending. Plus, the Sage is also more concerned with others achieving their goal, not so much their own. While she did join the group to escape her parents, she returned to the group in order to help Aang. And while she wasn't very old, she does have moments of wisdom, such as advising the gang to let Zuko join the team. And being a human lie detector does give off a certain wise quality to Toph. And she can certainly look down on others. So overall, this one might surprisingly be a good fit. Now, let's roll up our sleeves here and look at this next archetype, the Innocent. Now, I encourage you all to open up your minds a bit about this one and hear me out. We do occasionally see a softer side of Toph, such as during her field trip with Zuko. I think it is very interesting that Toph started out as a runaway and was reminded of this when that was her street name. After all, she did run away from her parents at a young age. And when in Ba Sing Se, she actually was happy to hear that her mom was in the city looking for her.
My mom's in the city. And from her letter, it sounds like she finally understands me.
Toph definitely tries to cover herself with a hard outer shell, or as she calls it,
But a healthy coating of earth.
but she definitely has a softer side. It's just well covered. She doesn't change throughout the series. However, she isn't very morally just, optimistic, or naive. So while she doesn't really have the personality of an innocent, she does have a few qualities that might make you think. Next on the list is the creator archetype. The archetype that's all about creating structure and stability to creating something new. And as an earthbender, it makes sense that this archetype would fit since it's all about creating sturdy objects and structures. Plus, as a creator, Toph did create a whole new type of bending, and is the only person ever to bend space rock from the meteor. While I wouldn't exactly call her an inventor or artist, she certainly has the authoritative and imaginative nature that comes with the archetype. However, while she does like to provide structure, she's also prone to creating a little chaos as well. Toph is a devastating force of nature that probably destroys more than she creates. In other words, it's a good possibility, but let's finish strong with the Explorer archetype. Now, Toph most certainly has some Explorer qualities. She certainly has a desire to be free and enjoys not staying too long in one place. Plus, the Explorer is all about self-discovery, and as the series went on, I think she was still trying to figure out what she wanted to do with her life. We know that she eventually settled down in Republic City, but before that, she probably needed to figure herself out a bit.
I am not Toph. I am Melon Lord.
She's ready for adventure and always willing to brawl. However, she isn't all that open-minded, nor does she have an analytical curiosity that comes with this archetype. While she is known as being a person who waits and listens, she's also quick-thinking and somewhat impulsive at times. She's all over the map in this regard, but hey, that's what the Explorer is all about being. Well, after thinking about it a lot, I've made my decision. And based entirely on my more or less completely unqualified opinion, I've decided that Toph Beifong is the Revolutionary. And like a rock, I am solid and unmovable in my decision, and here's why. You see, the Revolutionary is the perfect middle ground between being an outlaw and being a hero. Toph's unyielding spirit, matched with her troublesome personality, creates a balance in herself that makes her able to change the world. Plus, she went on to being head of a police force in Legend of Korra. This is exactly the kind of thing a revolutionary would do. They saw a position that needed to be filled, and they filled it with themselves. Plus, Toph was so intertwined with her environment that she was able to expand on her earthbending to the extreme on both ends by learning both sandbending and metal bending, which are two extensions of earthbending that she was able to master. So sure, my decision might be a little rough around the edges, but so is Toph. And if you disagree, leave a comment down below and explain why. And also let me know what other characters you'd like me to do in future videos. And be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you all for watching, and remember, stay concentrated.